This one is just bizarre as fuck. Let's do it. May is about this veterinary assistant named May. The movie opens with a quick scene that we're not going to figure out more about until the end, but it's of May holding her face while she bleeds. And then we get a flash to May's childhood and we see that she's kind of like an outcast. So since she doesn't really have any friends, her mom for her birthday gets her this doll that is enclosed in this glass case named Susie. And her mom tells her, if you can't find a friend, make one. And she also tells her you can't play with her, you have to keep her in this glass because she's special. So again, as an adult, May is a veterinary assistant and she assists a lot with surgeries. She has this coworker, Polly, played by Anna Faris, who's kind of crazy. And she becomes fixated on this man named Adam, who's a local. She starts to follow him around and gets to know his schedule. And one day she shows up at this restaurant that he's at. He falls asleep on the table, and when he wakes up, her head is in his hands like this. She becomes super obsessed with his hands. May and Adam have another run-in at a laundromat, and eventually they actually start to date and hang out more. May is super fucking weird, by the way, if you haven't picked up on that yet. But Adam tells her that he likes weird, and she tells him that she's never had a boyfriend before. One night they're at Adam's house, and he shows May this film that he made as a student. The movie ends up being about cannibalism, and it's these two couples that literally eat each other while they're on a picnic. And May really gets into it. So her and Adam start to kiss, it's getting steamy, and she ends up biting his lip to the point where she draws blood. He tries to get up and go get a towel, but she literally just takes it and smears it all over herself. Adam is super fucking disturbed by this and runs for the hills and leaves. Meanwhile, May still has Susie and she's been talking to her this whole time. And she yells at Susie after Adam leaves almost as if it's her fault. And she hides her away in a cupboard. Throughout this, Polly at work has also taken a liking to May and is kind of hitting on her. May takes in Polly's pet cat, Loopy. And one day Polly makes a move on May and May accepts it and they kiss. Meanwhile, May decided that she wanted to start volunteering with these blind children that her and Adam had seen in the park before. And she meets this one girl named Petey who makes May an ashtray. Despite the fact that May is kind of into Polly, she's still hung up on Adam and he is not answering any of her phone calls. So she decides to show up at his house. And when she does, she overhears him talking to friends about how he was glad that he can get rid of her and that she was fucking crazy. So May's devastated and she goes over to Polly's house, but when she gets there, she finds that Polly has another girl there named Ambrosia. So my girl May has a little bit of a mentee bee. She spirals. So she gets home, she's crying, and she calls out for Loopy the cat to come to her. And when he doesn't, she, in a fit of rage, throws the ashtray at him. And I'm so sorry to tell you this, but the cat dies. But throughout all this, May continues to talk to Susie. One day, May decides to take Susie to the school where she volunteers with the blind kids. And this turns into this really weird, nightmarish scene because Petey wants to take Susie out of the glass, which May does not do since her mother told her not to when she was a kid. But Petey ends up pulling it out of May's hands and the whole thing falls and shatters. The kids, being blind, not knowing that there's glass all over the floor, get on their hands and knees and crawl towards the doll and they're all fighting over her. May sees this and crawls towards her as well and she tries to grab Susie. There's blood everywhere, they're pulling the doll apart, it's utter fucking chaos. Eventually, May goes home devastated with Susie now in pieces. The next day, May is sitting at this bus stop where she meets this punk. He ends up liking her because she's weird and he's fucking weird. So they decide to go back to May's house to hang out and he takes his shirt off and reveals that he has a Frankenstein tattoo on his arm, which May admires. At one point, he goes in May's freezer where he discovers the body of Loopy, the cat. Obviously, he starts to freak out and May is like, I thought you were my friend. And he's like, of course I'm not your friend, you're a freak. And May, in a fit of rage, stabs him in the head and he dies. May looks at what she's done and she's decided that she needs more parts. So now it's Halloween night and May has made herself a costume, which looks exactly like what Susie wears. And she goes to Polly's house where she proceeds to cut her throat with a scalpel and kill her. Polly's girlfriend Ambrosia shows up and May proceeds to stab her in the temples with the scalpel and kill her. And then she goes to Adam's house where she finds him there with a girl. And she proceeds to kill them both, also with the scalpels, which by the way she took from her veterinary office. And then she takes them all home and she makes her new friend. Because if you can't find a friend, make one. So she makes this friend using the punk's arms with Adam's hands, which she had a fixation on, Polly's neck, which she had commented on before too, Ambrosia's legs, which she also told Ambrosia were beautiful before she killed her, Adam's girlfriend's ears, and Loopy's fur for the hair. I told you this was bizarre as fuck. So the ashtray that she had thrown earlier had May carved into it, so she takes the broken pieces and rearranges it and names her friend Amy. But then May has a bit of a breakdown when she realizes that Amy does not have eyes and can't see her. So she proceeds to give Amy one of her own eyes, which is the scene that we saw in the opening. And that's why she was bleeding from the face. She takes her own eye and puts it on Amy and begs it to look at her. The movie ends with May lying next to her creation on her bed as it reaches up and strokes her face with Adam's hands.